This hits the tape this morning, and it's significant that it actually came out as a press release. Goldman Sachs chief executive has cancer, lymphoma to be exact. That according to his note to the company's employees today. Lloyd Blankfein saying he has a very curable form of lymphoma and he plans to work largely as normal while undergoing chemotherapy here in New York. Now he joins a list of other executives who have battled deadly diseases while still serving as their company's top executive. But what does this say about corporate governance? Fox Business senior correspondent Charlie Gasparino has been speaking to people both at Goldman and elsewhere.
And we should point out before we get into the business side of this is that personally, wish Lloyd speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
The press release did say he's going to be fine. It's a very curable form of cancer, that he has lymphoma, and he's going to stay on the job essentially while he does this. So let's get that out of the way. And I take my shots at him from a business standpoint. I've met him. He's a very decent guy.
He's delightful, actually. He's a nice guy.
I know. He does come across like you think he's something else, but when you sit with him, he's this very warm guy.
Well, he grew up very humble.
Yeah.
He worked at Yankee Stadium selling hot dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a privileged guy growing up.
Right on.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, well, we like privilege here, too. But in any event, there's a right way to do what Goldman did today and a wrong way. Goldman did it the right way, okay? And we should point out when CEOs get sick, that is a material event. It impacts the company's stock if something happens to them immediately, if they can't perform on the job, if you have to rush and get a guy in that place to take over the CEO's job, that all weighs on the stock price. We should point out that shares of Goldman, yes, the whole market's down today, but it took a dive.
It's one of the leaders to the downside for the Dow.
But we should point out, if you're an investor in Goldman, you got to like the way they did this. They put it out all at once. They put this out promptly. I think he got his diagnosis, over the last couple of days, discussed it with his management team, with his board, and then went public with it. That is prompt disclosure, and it should make investors happy that they're taking this seriously. We should say that Jamie Dimon, when he had his throat cancer a couple of years ago, did similar thing, very promptly disclosed. Now, there are companies that don't do the right thing, and it always hangs over the company. There are problems with it. I think the way Apple disclosed, or finally disclosed, that Tim Cook was sick, and how his illness progressed, I think was somewhat problematic.
Steve Jobs.
Yes. What did I say?
Let's not repeat it. Steve Jobs is the correct one, so that's what matters.
What did I say?
Tim Cook.
Oh, no. Tim Cook is the new CEO. Steve Jobs is the old one. But the way they disclosed it, I think, was not a good way to do it. And I think Jimmy Kane at Bear Stearns was very sick during the beginning of the financial crisis. He got something called sepsis, which is an infection in his blood.
It's horrible.
Where he almost died. Now, he didn't die, okay? But I think the company, net, when he was in the hospital, should have disclosed that to shareholders. That's a material event. So you compare the wrong way to do it, I think, or the questionable way to do it, as opposed to, there's no right or wrong here.
It's a fine line between privacy and keeping the shareholder informed.
Right.
Which is a fair thing to do.
It's not that fine, though. You should always err on the side of disclosure. Goldman Sachs did it right. Full disclosure, talked about his ability to come back, talked about what type of cancer he had. We're talking about public companies. Private companies are totally opposite.
Yeah.
You don't have to, not totally opposite, but you don't have to do it. Then there's the wrong way. I think the least if you don't disclose a lot, you're playing with fire with a public company. Okay.
Well, we wish
him
well.
I'm sorry I mentioned Tim Cook before.
It's all right.
There's a brain lapse.
No problem. And we wish Lloyd well.
Yes.
Right.
And it looks like he's going to be okay, which is great.
Good. Yes. Sei gesund. Charlie Gasparino.